I am Maren, 31 years old, and I still remember the exact second my mother's face changed when the convoy of black SUVs pulled up outside my reception hall in Kelowna. They called my Vineyard wedding an embarrassment to the family name. They spent the morning of my engagement dinner posting photos from my younger sister's cabin getaway at Lake Louise, captioned with hearts and champagne emojis, while my texts sat unanswered. What none of them knew was that the quiet man standing beside me, the one they refused to even look in the eye, owned half the tech campus going up in downtown Vancouver and was worth more than every property my family had ever bragged about combined. What none of them knew was that by the end of that night, my mother would be standing outside a locked gate in the rain, phone in hand, typing the words, "Please, can we come in?" to a daughter she had spent her whole life making feel like an afterthought. My reply was 4 words. The gate stays closed. Before any of that, I need to tell you what it was like growing up the quiet daughter in a house where appearances were the only currency that mattered. My parents, Diane and Roland. No, that's not right. Let me start again properly. My mother went by Eleanor and my father by Walter, and in our tidy 2-story in Oakville, they ran our family like a business with a brand to protect. I was the responsible one. I did the taxes for my father's small accounting firm part-time through university. I never missed a family obligation. I never raised my voice. My younger sister, Clementine, was the one who got the photos hung in the hallway, the one whose achievements were announced at every dinner party like headline news. I loved her, genuinely, but I also learned early that love in our house was rationed, and she always got the bigger portion. It came to a head on a Sunday in early spring, at the kind of family dinner where the cutlery matters more than the conversation. My mother had the good china out, the set she only used for company, which told me immediately that someone's important was coming. That someone was Clementine's new fiancé, a hedge fund analyst named Garrett, who wore a different blazer to every meal and made sure you knew the brand. My father practically stood at attention when Garrett walked in. Meanwhile, my own partner, a soft-spoken software architect named Theo, sat beside me in a plain gray sweater, and my mother greeted him with the same warmth she'd give a delivery driver. I'd brought the wedding invitations that night. Cream envelopes, hand-addressed. The kind I'd spent 2 evenings getting right, because I wanted this to feel like an offering, not an obligation. I slid one across the table to my mother first. She opened it, scanned it, and her face did the thing it always did when she was deciding how to be cruel without raising her voice. "A vineyard," she said. "Outdoors, in October, in the Okanagan." She said it like I'd announced I was getting married in a parking lot. "It's beautiful there, Mom. The leaves will be changing. We found this small family-owned property." Small, she repeated, looking at my father like they were sharing a private joke. "Maren, darling, we have a reputation in this community. Your father is a senior partner. People will ask where the wedding was, and what am I supposed to say? A barn? It's not a barn. It's a working vineyard with a stone terrace. It sounds rustic," Clementine offered, not unkindly, but not helpfully either, already reaching for her phone, like the conversation bored her. Theo and I picked it together. It means something to us. My father cleared his throat, the way he always did before delivering something he'd clearly rehearsed. "Maren, your mother and I have decided we'll be attending Clementine's engagement celebration on the Riley yacht that same weekend. It's a significant event for the Whitmore family, and Garrett's parents specifically requested our presence." I sat very still. "That's the weekend of my wedding." "We know," my mother said, and there was no apology in it, only the calm certainty of someone who believed her math was correct. "But darling, be reasonable. A backyard wedding, forgive me, a vineyard wedding can happen any weekend. Clementine's engagement on the Riley yacht is once in a lifetime, you understand." I looked at Theo. He hadn't said a word the entire dinner, which was very like him. He absorbed insults the way some people absorb sunlight, quietly, without complaint, filing them away somewhere I couldn't see. Under the table, his hand found mine, and he gave it one slow squeeze, which I now understand was him saying, simply, "Let them." "Of course," I said. "I understand completely." My mother smiled, relieved that the unpleasantness was over, and passed the gravy. What they didn't understand, what I didn't even fully explain to them that night, was who exactly Theo was. He wasn't just a software architect with a quiet voice and an aversion to name-dropping. 3 years earlier, he had sold a logistics platform he'd built out of his apartment in Burnaby to a consortium of investors for a number that still made my stomach drop when I thought about it too long, and had spent the years since quietly building a second company, a clean energy data infrastructure firm that had just closed a funding round, putting his personal stake somewhere north of $22 billion. He didn't talk about it because he'd grown up the son of a millwright in Thunder Bay and had watched money turn every single person he'd ever known into someone worse. He kept one credit card, drove a 6-year-old Subaru, and the only extravagant thing about him was the size of his patience. He'd asked me, gently on our second date, why I never mentioned my family's money. I told him the truth, that we weren't actually wealthy, we just performed wealth, the way some families perform piety, loudly and for an audience. He'd laughed and said that explained a lot and never brought it up again. In the weeks after that dinner, I watched my mother's enthusiasm for Clementine's yacht party swallow every conversation in the family group chat. Caterers. A string quartet flown in from Toronto. A custom ice sculpture of the Whitmore family crest. Meanwhile, my own wedding planning happened in near silence, the group chat going quiet whenever I posted an update, as if my joy were an inconvenience they were too polite to comment on. I want to be honest about something, because I think it matters. I almost canceled. There was a week in August where I sat in my car outside the venue, looking at the empty terrace where chairs would eventually go, and thought about calling the whole thing off. Not the marriage, but the public version of it, the version where my family would have to show up and perform love they didn't feel. Theo found me there. He didn't try to talk me out of the feeling. He just sat with me until the sun went down, and then he said something I've held on to since. You don't owe them a seat at something beautiful just because they share your blood. Family is supposed to be earned every day, not assumed because of a birth certificate. I didn't cancel, but something in me did shift that week. I stopped trying to make the wedding palatable to them. I stopped sending updates to the group chat. I let them choose the yacht, fully, completely, and I let myself choose the vineyard. The morning of the wedding was the kind of clear October day you pray for and rarely get, sun low and gold over the rows of vines, the leaves doing exactly what I'd told my mother they would. My side of the aisle was modest. My college roommate, 2 cousins on my father's side, who'd quietly RSVP'd against my parents' wishes, a handful of friends from my accounting days. Theo's side, by contrast, included people I recognized from the business press, a senator's aide, 2 people who'd clearly flown in on a private jet judging by how unbothered they were by the hour. None of them wore their importance the way Garrett wore his blazers. They just stood quietly, the way Theo did, like the most powerful people in the room had nothing left to prove. We said our vows under a wooden arch threaded with late-season grapevine. I cried through most of mine. Theo, who I had never once seen lose composure, had to stop twice to collect himself, and somewhere around the second time I heard quiet laughter ripple through the rows. Not mocking, just the warm laughter of people watching someone they loved be undone by love. It was during the reception, just as the light was going truly golden, that the first phone buzzed at the head table belonging to one of Theo's old university friends, a woman named Priya who worked in finance media. She looked at her screen, looked up at us and said, with the particular delight of someone about to deliver excellent gossip, "You two need to see this." The story had broken an hour earlier. Apparently, the yacht my family was currently celebrating on, the Riley, chartered specifically for Clementine's engagement, was under sudden investigation. Its registered owner, a business associate of Garrett's father, had been named that very afternoon in a securities fraud filing connected to an offshore fund. Marine enforcement had boarded the vessel mid-celebration. There were photos already circulating, blurry but unmistakable. My mother, in her teal cocktail dress, standing on a gangway, being questioned by an officer while Garrett's father gestured wildly at someone off camera. Clementine was in the background, mascara running, phone pressed to her ear. I want to tell you I felt triumphant. Mostly I felt strange, like watching a storm hit a house I used to live in. The first text came 20 minutes later. My mother, Maren, something terrible has happened. We need somewhere to go. Can we come to you? I stared at it through 3 more courses of dinner before I answered anything. By the time the sun had fully set and the string lights along the terrace had taken over, my phone had 12 missed calls and a stream of increasingly frantic texts, each one sliding from outrage to pleading to. Finally, a kind of raw honesty I'd waited my whole life to hear and almost didn't believe when it came. I know we don't deserve to be there. I'm sorry, Maren, I'm so sorry. I looked at Theo. He didn't tell me what to do. He never did. He just asked quietly, "What do you want, Maren? Not what's fair, what do you actually want?" What I wanted, I realized, standing in a place my family had called rustic and beneath them, surrounded by string lights and grapevines and people who had shown up without being asked twice, was simply to finish my own night without them in it. I typed back 4 words. The gate stays closed. I turned my phone face down on the table and Theo pulled me up for the first dance we'd actually rehearsed, the only part of the whole day that had gone exactly according to plan. The aftermath took longer to settle than the night itself. My father called the firm's lawyer before he called me again. Clementine's engagement, as it turned out, did not survive the scandal, partly because Garrett's family's finances unraveled faster than anyone expected, and partly because Garrett, given the choice between standing by my sister or distancing himself from the mess, chose distance with an efficiency that told you everything about the kind of partner he would have made. My mother sent one more message a few days later, longer, more careful, less performative than I'd ever seen her. An actual apology, the kind that names specific wrongs instead of asking generally to be forgiven. I read it twice. I didn't answer it that week, or the next. I'm not going to tell you I cut them off forever because that wouldn't be honest, and I don't think it would be the lesson worth taking from this. What I will tell you is that I stopped showing up to earn a place at a table that was never set with me in mind. Months later, I had coffee with my mother, just the two of us, no performance, no good china. She apologized again, this time without an audience to perform sincerity for, and I told her the truth, that I didn't need her to understand the wedding or the money, or any of it. I needed her to understand that I had stopped waiting for her permission to be happy. We're still rebuilding something, slowly, carefully. The way you rebuild a structure after you've found out the foundation was never quite level to begin with. Clementine and I talk more now than we did before. Oddly enough, humility, it turns out, made her easier to love. My father still struggles to say the word sorry out loud, but he sends me articles about clean energy now, the kind Theo's company gets mentioned in, and I think that's his version of trying. As for the vineyard, the gate, the gold October light, I think about that day less for the scandal that unfolded a few kilometers away on the water, and more for the moment Theo's voice cracked saying his vows, for cousins who showed up against instructions, for the particular piece of choosing, finally, who gets to stand beside you when everything else falls away. The gate stayed closed that night, but it didn't stay closed forever. It just stayed closed long enough for me to remember that I was allowed to decide who walks through it and when.